Monza magic for McLaren as Lando Norris puts it on pole with Piastri alongside him. It's Russell in third and the two Ferraris just ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and only then will you find Max Verstappen in a lowly and unusual 7th place. Alongside me to chat all things qualifying, it is Harry Benjamin, our F1 commentator, and Abby Pulling, F1 Academy Championship leader. And Harry, just talk us through qualifying. What happened and how did Norris get on pole?
Well, qualifying at the Italian Grand Prix is always a bit of a frenetic bit of action. Everybody trying to get a toe. And in the end, I think the main thing was how fine the margins were. Less than 0.3 of a second, really splitting the top 6 drivers, and within the top 6 there is no Max Verstappen. That is one of the biggest talking points. It's a McLaren front row lockout. Lando Norris getting back-to-back pole positions, Oscar Piastri in second, George Russell in third, with the two Ferraris just behind, and Red Bull just seemingly lacking pace, and I think we expected that a little bit, but we always expect a Verstappen to pull something out of the bag, and that didn't happen.
Abby, it was a surprise, but let's just talk about Norris first. We'll get on to Verstappen. We'll also, by the way, hear from the newest signing for Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli speaking, and hear from Toto Wolff about that announcement. But Norris, he thought there was more. He didn't do the final quali lap his best. It was the first one, but he secures pole.
I mean, as soon as he said that on the radio, I'm pole. Oh, thanks, guys. I was shocked because he's already a 10th down the road to his teammate, and he probably thought there was another 10th or 2 in it. So I think it just goes to show how much pace the McLaren has at this stage of the season. They're really taking that title fight to Verstappen and Red Bull. And
this is exactly what McLaren needed this weekend. It was looking tight. And a little bit, actually, McLaren looking like they might not be the favourites completely. It was basically tight between the top 4 teams coming into qualifying. But this is what they needed. There's a 70-point gap right now between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Norris, the chaser. Norris not only needs to be getting on pole position and winning the race, he needs his teammate helping him and taking points off of Verstappen as well. That has, so far, the first step of that happening this weekend has been completed. That wasn't the case last time out in Zandvoort. Piastri is now up there on the front row with Norris. First hurdle jumped. The next one is going to be that start on lap 1 and then securing a 1-2 finish to take those points and continue to close down that gap in both drivers and constructors.
Well, let's hear from Lando Norris, pole man.
I would probably say more satisfying than last weekend. Just because it's been a lot closer in practice and we had more struggles. It's a more difficult track to kind of put things together. We've looked good all weekend, but we've not looked great, and we looked great in Zandvoort. So pretty means and kind of felt better out there today in terms of getting the pole, because it felt much harder in doing so, and that's always a great feeling to have. So I'm very happy, especially for a 1-2 is even better for us as a team.
Another circuit where you're strong, different characteristics, and the Red Bull's a little bit further back. Does that bode well tomorrow? Do you think keeping hold of this 1-2, turn it into a podium?
Yeah, I mean, we'll work together as a team, and what we want is a 1-2. So we'll work in our best interest to try and achieve that and keep our heads down and focus on ourselves.
So we know what he has to do, and he knows what he has to do. But Abby, sitting on pole position in Monza, how do you get it right?
I mean, it is the best view, of course, down to turn 1, but it's also a very long run. It's really, really important to get a start. And even then, if you do get the start, they'll just get the slipstream and attack you again around the outside. Or if you give them a sniff at the inside, they'll be straight up there. So luckily, he's got Oscar Piastri next to him, his teammate. So I imagine they'll be pretty fair going into turn 1. But he just needs to get it off the line and control the race from there.
Listening to Zach Brown speaking after qualifying, he said they need more traction. And it's true, isn't it, Abby? We've seen them last time out at Zandvoort just going nowhere off the start with wheel spin. So what do they actually need in the car?
Gosh, well, I mean, there's a lot that the drivers can do. They've got their different throttle maps and clutch maps, which they can kind of refine, and more slip of the clutch essentially is what they need. That will help them get less wheel spin. but then it could actually hinder the actual performance of the start. So there's a fine line, and they've done their practice starts this weekend, so we'll get a gauge for how productive they've been on the start for the Sunday's race.
The problem is that McLaren have with these starts is that it hasn't been the same issue every time. Last time out in Zandvoort, Norris got initially a good getaway, but it was the second phase of the start that really hampered him down. And it was similar for Piastri, who also lost a spot, and that's really what prevented Piastri from getting onto the podium. So the trouble is that they're struggling to identify the consistency in where the start issues are happening. Pole here, as if you're the driver, is on the left-hand side. Now, that's where Norris will be. Piastri will then be just on the right. So they're going to have to make sure that if they do have an issue on the start, if there's some way they can work together to almost prevent the likes of George Russell and Charles Leclerc, who is pretty nifty with his starts, from diving down the inside. It's a 476-metre run to pole, and we can see some good overtaking down the inside into turn one.
Yeah, and like you say, Leclerc could sneakily find his way past. He loves to find a gap that is almost not there. And we saw that the Ferraris had really good long pace, actually. So, they need to do as best as possible to get the orange cars as wide as possible going into that turn one.
You can see, can't you, in your head already and envision about 4 or 5 cars all in a line, all in a row, coming down to turn one, and who's going to lose out? You've got Norris, Piastri, Russell, who has great form when it comes to starting, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen. I mean, the list, those 7 drivers are the pedigree of this field, and any of them could really challenge, and you don't know what mischief is going to get and occur at the start, and it's not easy, is it? What's going on for all the drivers around them? How do you react so quickly to that start?
I mean, they're all fierce characters, and they all want to be leading coming out of turn one. They we'll see. But I think they'll also know, obviously, it's a long race. They need to, win in turn one. So we'll see them all kind of jostling about, potentially a few taking the slip road or cutting turn 2 through the gravel, which won't be ideal, but it's better than an incident. And we'll see how it goes from there.
We have to talk tactics, team tactics, Harry, because a lot of people are raising the issue of how can Norris and Piastri work together to have the best shot of claiming this championship, whether it's the Constructors or the Drivers' Championships. 30 points behind in Constructors, 70 points behind in the Drivers. What would you do if you were Zak Brown?
I'd back Lando Norris. I think you have to. He's the one who has the superior position in the Drivers' Championship. And yes, Piastri, okay, is still mathematically in it, but Norris is still the more consistent driver when it comes to qualifying and racing. Piastri has scored more points, though, in the last few races, but Norris has the momentum at the moment. Norris is the more established in that team. Norris is the more experienced than Piastri. And I just think that Piastri now, technically, owes one to Lando, Abby, after Hungary. And there was a reason McLaren implemented those orders in Hungary, because in the long run, that's going to help Norris in this title charge. Yeah,
like you say, it's perfect that you brought that up, because it is literally an IOU one that he's given. And I think we'll see as much as Oscar will want to fight for it, he'll have to kind of be nice to Lando and kind of edge him on and be his wingman. But I mean, at the end of the day, Zak Brown, what they need is constructor points as well, because at the end of the season, that is where the prize money is. So they'll be wanting to be at the top and get the biggest chunk of money at the end.
Abby, have you ever been in one of those driver briefings where your boss essentially tells you to either back out or back off or push and someone will support you? How do those conversations go?
No, to be honest, I haven't been in a situation like that. In junior category racing, it's very much, I mean, you bring your own money, and it works like that. So you're driving for yourself as much as you are driving for the team. As much as you are driving for your team, your teammates are driving for themselves. You're driving for yourselves. And I've been in a conversation where it's like, okay, let's not be silly. If all of us are starting on the line next to each other, but yeah, it would definitely be brought up.
Can we just say, though, that, Andrea Stella, the team principal of McLaren, is very much always of the rhetoric of both cars must see the checkered flag at the end of the day, regardless of order. But equally, 70 points is the gap. Well, Abby, your gap at F1 Academy, you've got 71 points over Dorian Pan. What would be, if you're Lando Norris, what's your case in the briefing? What case are you making to go, well, actually, no, come on, you're backing me here, surely?
Yeah, you get so many points from a race win. It's 25 points. Fastest lap as well is an extra point if they manage to at least take that away from the Red Bulls. It's really important, especially this weekend where Verstappen is 7th. It's an opportunity to take out 20 odd points from them. Obviously, the Red Bulls, they'll be looking to move forward in the race, but you may see a DRS train. It may actually end up being pretty tough for them to work their way up the order. So McLaren have to take this opportunity with Lando to just make that Drivers' Championship that little bit closer, and then take the team points and try and, obviously the ideal situation for them will be a 1-2 finish with one of the orange cars taking the fastest lap as well.
Well, let's hear from Max Verstappen. He will start in 7th place, an unlikely starting place for Red Bull.
Q3 was very bad. On both of my tyre sets, I just picked up a lot of understeer. So I couldn't attack any corners anymore. I had to back it out a lot mid-corner, and you lose a lot of lap time with that. So somehow in Q2, it wasn't that bad. I did a 0.6 at that point, and we were almost the quickest. We know our limitations, we know our problems, but at that point I think we had it fairly under control. But I went into Q3 and the balance was completely out, and I don't really understand how that happened.
How do you think those limitations then will affect tomorrow's race?
It's not ideal for tyres. Of course, now we are at the back end of the top group, I would say, so let's see how that will evolve. Difficult to say how competitive we are going to be in the race compared to the others.
So that's Max Verstappen speaking to Lawrence Barretti. He will start P7, and clearly, Abby, not happy.
No, it almost seemed like they're going into tomorrow with they're in the dark. They don't know what to expect. They almost expecting a lot of struggle. To simplify what you basically just said was, at the apex, he can't carry any more speed. He can't pick up the power or come off the brake entering the corner and increase that minimum speed. And if he does, it just understeers. He just runs out of road, which is, not ideal at all.
But it does lead for a fascinating race, because you'd automatically think maybe by lap 10 Verstappen would be in the mirrors of Ferrari or even the leaders, but it doesn't sound like that, Harry.
Long run pace is better than qualifying pace for Verstappen and Red Bull. It is better. However, it's not going to be a walkover. He's going to have to get his elbows out. We know he can do that, but he's going to have to fight for it and get in front of the Mercedes and the Ferraris and the McLarens that all lie ahead of him. We're being treated to an absolutely fascinating end to a 2024 season. Rewind to this time in Bahrain, and if you'd have told us this was happening post-summer break, none of us would have believed you. But this is the curious thing about what is going on at Red Bull at the moment. There is so much to unearth there. We know about all the off-track dramas going on there, and I'm sure that plays a part. But when you have a man like Adrian Newey departing your team already, being frozen out of having direct input into the developments of the car, they've been... a team is lost a little bit when they're describing a flaw as a Frankenstein flaw, because they're not quite sure which way to go. They're going to do a mismatch, and I just get the feeling that if Newey was still actively involved, they wouldn't be messing around with that kind of thing. They would know. They would have a direction. And look, Red Bull haven't completely fallen off the pace, but because it is tight, but they are not within that 0.3 in the top 6. They are slightly adrift, and we've seen it all throughout the weekend. Verstappen hasn't been able to put many clean laps together.
It almost sounds really evil of me, but I'm actually enjoying watching him struggle. Not because I'm a horrible person, but because he has had it almost so easy the past couple of years. And as an athlete, it's so hard mentally, and what pressure he's had to kind of overcome, and the challenges that he's had this year. He's got to keep pulling it out of nowhere, out of thin air, and it's like, when is it going to end? And we're maybe seeing that a little bit. He's struggling more and more, and we
all want to see a fight, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want any driver to do particularly badly, but we just want a fight, and that's what we're getting right now.
Exactly. It's really close, and it's not easy for any of them out there. They're all on the limit, pushing as hard as possible, trying to get over these balance issues which Max had today, and it's going to make it, I think, that much more exciting in the race, and also for the championship battle in the long run.
We like Evil Abbey. Evil Abbey can stay, that's
Evil
fine.
Abbey.
But as you say, we want a title fight. But can Norris handle it? Harry, it's a lot of pressure as that gap closes, ideally for Lando's sake. Knowing that you're in a championship challenge, it's completely different to if you're just driving for the win each race. I mean, I remember Rosberg in 2016 when he was trying to challenge Lewis Hamilton for the championship. He just said, I'm taking it race by race. And it became metronomic in his delivery of that answer. But what do you think Norris needs to do? And I'll come to you after, Abby, to just lower that gap without the pressure mounting?
He needs to go out every race weekend, set pole position, and win the race. That's what he needs to do to ultimately win the championship.
So he needs to borrow Rosberg's line.
Yeah, he does need to take it race by race.
Make it sound so easy.
It's simple, guys. There's not much to look into here. You just got to go out and win. But look, in a way, when you treat it like that, and athletes can be, as you know, Abby, data-driven. It's all in the numbers. Trying to get rid of that and separate yourself from the emotional side. I think the sizable gap helps Norris in a way, because at the start of the year, he wasn't expecting to be in the fight, and they weren't in the fight. And anything now is a bonus. Yes, okay, it could be a first World Drivers' Championship title in Formula One for Lando Norris.
Keep on the pressure.
But while they're looking as good as they are now, I don't see why Norris will buckle under any kind of pressure. I think he knows where he stands within the team. Hungary was a really good learning and developmental point for McLaren as a whole in terms of their communication, how they deal with drivers, for where Norris and Piastri stand in the team as it is right now. And I think they're in a really good place, and their learning and their rate of development is massive. And when you've got Andrea Stella at the helm with Zach Brown as well, I just feel like they have all the ingredients to not only secure a Drivers' World Championship, but to also deliver the Constructors' World title too.
Yeah, what I think we need to remember is that Lando has fought for championships in the past in the junior categories. He knows what the feeling is like. He's won championships. He is a champion, albeit it was a long time ago and it wasn't in Formula One.
I suppose everyone will think back to that Sochi incident, right, where he lost the race win. He didn't make the right call to go on and change tyres and go on to intermediates, whereas Hamilton did. I think that was the way it worked.
Yep.
But that was a few years ago, and I feel like Norris has done a lot of growing up since then.
Definitely. I think he's matured a lot, and he's running the team. It is his team, essentially. And I mean, it's obviously Zach Brown's baby, but he really seems to be solidifying himself and really showing that he's hungry. I think he's so hungry right now to take it to Max and to show that actually this guy's not the best kid on the block. I'm here, and I'm here to make a statement.
It's intriguing, isn't it? So many of this grid grew up together, and they know each other so well, and they've done karting, they've done the junior formula, they've done F1, but now they're competing for an F1 championship, and I think that takes it to another level. And they do know each other, but do they know each other when it comes to F1 championship titles?
Abby, can you be friends with a rival?
Yeah, I mean, a few of the girls on the grid in F1 Academy, I'm good friends with, and I think it's
you're
nice.
friends with them now because you're beating them.
No, I do genuinely think you can have friends on the grid. I mean,
Are you friends with Dorian?
I think we get along. I wouldn't. We're not close friends.
Because she's your title rival, isn't she? Really?
Yes, she is. But it's no bad blood. Like we'll all laugh and have a giggle after. But I just don't know her as well as maybe some of the other girls on the grid. But I mean, Alice Powell, who's normally sat in my seat right now, I've raced her and she was my manager and good friend as well. So we managed to get through it. So
it is possible.
Yeah, but as we see, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, especially in the COVID years, they were gaming together. They were on live streams, having a good time. So I wonder if after this year they'll be able to do that again.
It is fascinating to watch them grow and to watch them develop through their F1 journeys. And another person we will watch grow through his F1 journey is Kimi Antonelli. Just changing subject slightly, he was unveiled on Saturday morning as the newest Mercedes driver, taking over from Lewis Hamilton at the end of the year. Big shoes to fill, and I go to my big shoed colleague, Harry Benjamin.
Lovely segue, lovely.
Thank you so much. Size 15?
16, get it right,
16,
Jenny.
I'm so sorry. Even bigger shoes. How does he slot into that team? How will it work? I
think he slots in flawlessly. He has been massively rated for a little while now. Toto Wolff has been, his biggest fan. So much so, Mercedes have had him in the fold since he was 12 years old in that Mercedes Academy. He's a champion all throughout karting, then into Italian and German F4, a champion, Formula Regional champion, and they rated him so much that they decided, you know what, you don't need Formula 3, let's put you into Formula 2, which is a big jump, as I'm sure Abby can probably explain to us. But, okay, has suffered in the early part of the Formula 2 season for, I think, reasons beyond the driver's control, because Oliver Bem was sort of suffering the same issues with setup and how they're dealing with the new F2 car. Yeah, and he's their teammate, isn't he? Yes, Prem. So they're teammates together. Of course, Bem and another man who'll be making the step up to Formula 1 next year. But Antonelli, despite his chaotic Formula 1 weekend debut, crashing out in FP1 and also racing in Formula 2, had a crash in the sprint race earlier too. Clearly, I think there is something about Antonelli. He has an aura around him that just screams champion, and he is fast. When you look at the data and how much extra speed he was carrying through some of the corners, he's clearly not afraid to go hell for leather, Abby. And I think Toto Wolff said, I'd rather have a driver to slow down than speed up. Yeah, as you said, they struggled to slow him down, and we saw that in the first practice of the weekend. He lit up the timings, was purple, green, set amazing sectors, and I think his first push lap put him ahead of the rest of the field. Against some really experienced drivers that have done Monza, a million times. The likes of Lewis Hamilton. He's a veteran now. So, yeah, when he started his second push or third push to be improving on his lap time by a significant amount, he would have stormed the field at that time in practice. Only 10 minutes in though. He made quite a vital error, went in the wall on the last corner, Parabolica, 45G incident. It was kind of a baptism of fire in a sense, and but it's almost how you bounce back from that, isn't it? That tells you what kind of driver. I think the word maturity was something Toto Wolff was very much concerned about, and if he can walk away from a huge shunt in his first public appearance in a Formula 1 car and then just get into a Formula 2 car and race it out like nothing's happened, I think that showcases above and beyond the crash. Yeah, I think he learned a huge lesson, and I think, the thing, like say, not to focus on is the crash, is the speed that he had before that, and as long as he takes the lesson going forward and, learns his limits a little bit better, he's obviously not had too much experience in the Formula 1 machinery, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes into, if he does another free practice appearance this year, how he kind of settles in again. But then he had qualifying shortly after his crash and qualified, I think, P6, which isn't too bad going, outperforming his teammate. Let's hear from Toto Wolff, his boss, the man who has nurtured him, as you say, since he was 12 years old and is protecting him as he goes into F1. This is what he had to say in a sit-down exclusively with BBC's Andrew Benson.
Kimi has been with us since the age of 11. We have seen that back in the day that his karting was exceptional. Maybe the only one who came ever close to it is Max's karting trajectory. And then he went through the Formula Series, winning in the rookie years, and that's very special. But so did George Russell. So it's not we will be having two drivers that are, I think, very extraordinary. Now Kimi has all it needs, the ability and the speed, and he's a part of the team for a long time. He's tested a lot, and we expect great things, but not from the beginning. It's clear we need to give him time and see how he develops.
How much time will you give him? What are you sort of expecting out of the first season with him?
I think probably we'll see some very good races and highlights in the first season, but on the other side we will also see some, front wings that will be missing after turn one, and maybe, the one or the other things in the race that don't run so well. Formula One is a complicated car, lots of switches, and that's something you need to adapt to. But also measuring himself against George, we don't believe it is possible to be anywhere near that level. And on the other side, we acknowledge that, and also George does that, there is a young driver with a lot of ability, and that's our hope. So to have two drivers also that are really strong.
So that's Toto Wolff with the BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. And Harry, he seems to be his biggest champion, his biggest fan. He'll race alongside George Russell, which in itself causes an interesting dilemma, because we all know that Mercedes are courting Max Verstappen hard. They want him for 2026. So that leaves a problem, doesn't it, for Mercedes?
There's a couple of really interesting things about Antonelli signing with Mercedes. First of all, it's amazing to have an 18-year-old, a young buck coming up through the ranks in the academy system, delivering into Formula One, into a top team. I think probably the first time a rookie is slotted straight into a top team since probably Lewis Hamilton, the man he's replacing when he came in to McLaren back in 2007. So that in itself, the weight of replacing a 7-time world champion and how that dynamic is going to play within Antonelli and how the team support him around that. Personally, I think he'll thrive, because I think replacing Lewis Hamilton, in a way, I think that's almost pressure off, because you can't, and everyone knows that. So in a way, I think he'll be fine on that front. But as you say, the biggest reason why Toto Wolff is so infatuated with Kimi Antonelli is because he feels that he missed out on Max Verstappen, signing Verstappen when he was on the cusp of coming into Formula One. Verstappen was hotly contested between Mercedes and Red Bull. Mercedes didn't have a seat to offer him. Red Bull, by the fact they have two teams, and Toro Rosso at the time, did. And that's why Red Bull and Verstappen became the combination they are today. And Wolff has almost seemingly never gotten over that. And so the prospect of teasing Verstappen away from a team like Red Bull is almost too much for Wolff to say no to. And as much... Contracts mean nothing. Everybody is available if you want them. Everyone can be bought out. Ricciardo was paid not to race for a year. It can happen. So that is one of the fundamental things that this Antonelli signing brings. They'll be together with George Russell next season, and that's a shootout for the Mercedes seat. And nobody expects Antonelli to win, because Russell is a good driver and has more experience. So what happens then for 2026 when we highly expect Wolff to sign Max Verstappen to Mercedes? Is it Verstappen-Antonelli? And what happens to Russell? Or is it Verstappen-Russell? And then you've just put Antonelli in for 1 year in Mercedes? This has so many long-term implications that in itself, never mind the racing, the off-track is exciting enough.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Well, let's hear from the man himself. This is Kimi Antonelli.
It's not possible to replace Lewis Hamilton. He's such a great figure in the sport of today, and he has achieved so much in his career. So I don't want to see as his replacement. I'm just the next driver for Mercedes in 25, so I'm really excited for that. And he's a really great guy. He has been giving me some support. Really, really happy.
So that was Kimi Antonelli. It's funny, actually, to think that in 2018, Kimi Antonelli actually met Lewis Hamilton, shook hands with him on the grid as a grid kid. He was dressed in white overalls and in the F1 logo. Who knew that he would then take his seat when it comes to 2025?
Yeah, I mean, definitely wouldn't have been in his mind back then, shaking Kimi's hand. But as he says, I think it was really important that he's not filling the boots, and he's not replacing Lewis Hamilton, but he's going to do his own thing. He's going to try and write his own story and kind of make his own history of the team, and just try and, I think, become a sponge and learn as much as possible. I think that's the position, especially as we've said. His seat might be up for grabs pretty quickly in 2026. So he just needs to prove that he deserves a longer opportunity in Formula One.
I think Hamilton is also really relishing the fact that Antonelli is taking his spot, because I think he must see a lot of parallels with Antonelli coming in and having such a furore around him, exactly the same as Hamilton did, and then being spring-loaded into a top team, could potentially fight for world championships straight away. I even loved Hamilton had a tough qualifying, and I loved what he said very cheekily afterwards, saying, "Oh, the team deserve better. Maybe they'll get that with Kimi," with a little wink at the end. So I think that just highlights how much he is kind of relishing the fact, and he almost gave the game away actually before the official announcement of Antonelli. Anyway, so
who didn't? It was a game of who could give the news away first.
Exactly.
It was amazing.
So I think this is a nice story, and it sets us up for a cracker of a Formula One season next year and the year after, and we're not even done in 2024 yet.
Exactly, which leads me very nicely on to predictions. Harry, seeing as you teed it up so well, who do you predict will win the Monza Grand Prix? The Italian Grand Prix in Monza.
Lando Norris will win the Italian Grand Prix in Monza.
Abby?
Yeah, I think Lando's, as I say, hungry as ever, and he wants to close that gap to Verstappen.
Payback for Hungary, maybe in his mind, after he lost out to Piastri, who will start alongside him.
What about you? Hang on. What about you?
Oh, I was just going to throw it to production, Joe.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah?
Norris for Joe.
Where will Verstappen finish, though? He's thrown a wild card in. Harry, where will Verstappen finish? Starting P7?
I think he'll finish fourth.
Hang on, are you getting help? You didn't phone a friend.
Producer Pete, you held up a 4. I was actually going to say 5th. Actually, I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go 5th.
Don't be swayed.
I'm very easily swayed. Abby, Verstappen?
To be honest, I think he's going to struggle to move forward. They've struggled a lot this weekend, and Monza, it's notorious for a DRS train, as we call it. But then again, it's a new track, new tarmac, and every team is going into the race into the unknown. It could be a 2-stop, so it's all different, and they all need to react accordingly.
Jen, Verstappen, Norris, where are they finishing?
Well, I think Albon has shown good speed this weekend. I think that he could jump the Red Bulls, and then cause the DRS train behind him. So I think Verstappen could go backwards, and I think it would be Norris. I'm going. Something says Russell. I don't know why.
Okay, do it. Go on, go for Russell.
But I think it will be Norris. But there's something. I don't know.
Your heart wants
punt.
Russell. Your head says Norris.
Well, it's split, isn't it? They're both amazing young British men who could challenge, and one of them could challenge for the championship. So for the sake of the championship, I'll go with Norris. There we go. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and our coverage continues with the race off at 2:00. We will start at 1:45, so make sure you join us. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.